63, 13 November 2020. This is video number 3 for today. Oh, I had to lead with this one because this is choice. Fauci says, essentially, it's time to do what you're told. In a recent interview, White House COVID advisor said that while he understands America's independent spirit, it's time to do what you're told, referring to wearing masks and major lockdown orders. Observers note, some state governors and other local and county officials are already expressing concern about a proposed Biden plan for a 4 to 6 week lockdown. Meanwhile, state governors in Iowa, Maryland, Minnesota, New York, Utah, among others, are implementing their own restrictions as COVID cases rise. Protesters earlier this year spoke out against the lockdowns, and future protests are likely if Biden becomes president and implements this plan. There may also be legal challenges to lockdowns. In a speech last night, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito described this year's lockdowns as unconstitutional, as a constitutional stress test, adding that the country has never before seen restrictions as severe and prolonged as those experienced for most of 2020. Hope you like the people you're with, or hope that you and the people you're with may be able to change something. Low intensity conflict in some. Million MAGA March starts tomorrow in D.C. The Million MAGA March is gaining support from conservative groups as well as increased attention from far-left counter-demonstrators. White House press secretary yesterday said they expect the pro-Trump turnout to be quite large. One anarchist media outlet is likening it to a larger version of 2017 Charlottesville. Of course they would. Several leftist groups have expressed interest in or confirmed they'll be conducting counter demonstrations, including Black Bloc. In Washington, the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Youth Liberation Front is one group calling for violent counter demonstrations, observers note. This event is likely to be the largest meeting of pro and anti-Trump groups until the ongoing election litigation is settled. Oh, it's not going to stop. You know as well as I do, this is not going to stop. The Capitol's strict gun control is likely to suppress openly carried firearms, but the likelihood of violence is still high given the expected turnout and attention the event is receiving from far-left groups. California anarchist groups promote political violence. A Southern California-based anarchist group called for attacks on the government. There is no such thing as a revolutionary government or state, and the state will never abolish itself. It must be attacked, they wrote. Far-left groups are likely to continue disruptions during a potential Biden administration. While some claim that they are a symptom of the Trump administration, their mission is a total abolition of the state itself. Leftists map out payphones. I didn't know we still had payphones. Contributors to a collective mapping project recommended the use of the Payphone Project. The project provides the locations of increasingly rare payphones in a user's area, observers note. Operations security guidance for leftist activists include the use of burner phones instead of personal cell phones. The use of payphones is an alternative solution to maintaining anonymous communications. Atlanta-based leftist groups warns of Floyd-related arrests. The Atlanta Anti-Repression Committee, ARC, warned followers, I just put that in there, it doesn't actually say that, but it is the Atlanta Anti-Repression Committee, AARC, so ARC, whatever, warned followers that the FBI has been conducting raids and arrests in Atlanta, Georgia for crimes committed during the George Floyd riots over the summer. According to the report, the FBI has made multiple arrests for arson and other crimes. The group also provided information for suspects to receive bail or legal support. Observers note, far-left groups have used the coronavirus pandemic to fuel calls for releasing prisoners and avoiding gatherings such as court proceedings. They will likely, once again, take advantage of concerns over fallen winter infection spikes. Atlanta-based BLM group promotes security culture. Maca. That's maca. Black coffee and cinnamon. Atlanta-based BLM group promotes security culture. Black Lives Matter activists based in Atlanta shared additional communication security or ComSec information. The security list provides checklists and helpful links to bolster digital privacy or security. In addition, the guide recommends destroying sensitive documents, opting out of public records, using infrared lights against closed security cameras, and using anti-facial recognition clothing. Observers note. Direct action groups continue to develop a security culture to avoid surveillance and confrontation with law enforcement. LRO, or the Latino Rifle Organization, warns of future gun legislation. What's the percentage of Latinos have voted for the very person that's going to promote and sign all this gun legislation? It's not bad enough that in Texas there's a slate of 27 bills that are attacking everything from 80% lower rebuild or builds to 80% lowers to the freaking not the short-barreled rifles, but the braces. What do you think is going to happen? Latino Rifle Organization founder P.B. Gomez warned members and armed leftists in several states that gun control legislation is likely to come in the near future from Democratic lawmakers. You think? Gomez specifically mentioned Colorado, Virginia, Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico, and Washington, and also warned members to prepare for the potential Biden administration's ATF crackdown on pistol brace interpretations. Oklahoma City-based leftist calls for veteran support. What is absolutely disgusting to me is the number of veterans who have completely turned their backs on the country by continually voting for leftists who are thinly veiled as Democrats. They have simply turned their backs on everything that the country stood for and stands for. And they are not my brothers in arms to a person. An organizer for the Oklahoma City Revolutionary Abolitionists called for veterans and military members to aid the frontline movement in their fight for liberation against the current terrorist regime. The organizer mentioned about-face veterans as one resource and mentioned an alleged former U.S. Army Special Operations soldier that could be aiding the Oklahoma City-based revolutionary group. Observers note, we have observed a deliberate effort by leftist groups to recruit more veterans into their ranks. The inclusion of former Special Operations personnel could have a significant impact on their level of training and ability and ability to carry out more effective insurgent activity. I think the percentage ratio is still hovering around 69, 70% who'd be conservative, and the rest not, that makes up the military. With those numbers and the amount of personnel that we actually have in the military, active duty, National Guard, Reserve, even the Coast Guard Reserve, if there is a Coast Guard Reserve. That to me is not a good ratio, because based on our fairly politically and culturally polarized society, is that lower percentage the percentage who are going to turn on the American people? On their fellow brothers and sisters in uniform? One of the things that we always had to deal with was green on blue attacks. Are we going to see that within the ranks? If we have people like this General Tilley and others who are never Trumpers, and of course it has nothing to do with Trump, it has everything to do with a machine. Trump is just the one basically taking the flag. Are we going to see, or rather, what else are we going to see? I'll leave it there for now. LAPD warns of protests and riot limitations. Los Angeles Police Chief Michael Moore, that's funny, recently warned we can handle one 10,000 person protest, but 10 1,000 person protests throughout the city will overwhelm us. Nothing like giving a heads up to the enemy. Observers note, anarchists are using this statement to call for further decentralized action to overwhelm the city. And why the hell wouldn't they if you're going to if you're going to do that, you're literally just asking to be overwhelmed. Bahala na. Upcoming event calendar. Upcoming event calendar. 14 November, Community March, Huey Newton Gun Club, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. That's tomorrow. 14 November, Million MAGA March, Pro-Trump, Washington, D.C. 14 November, F Donald Trump, MAGA, All Out D.C., Washington, D.C. Tasty. Be safe. Know who your people are. And watch each other's six. From all enemies, foreign and domestic. 623 out.